Hello, everyone. Welcome back to week 1, day 1 of Web Fundamentals. I wanted to reintroduce some of the rules that we have. Just want to make sure that we're understanding where we're at. So for the first lecture, the first day, I was a little lenient, but from now on, we're going to be very strict on time and getting started here. So I want to enforce, if you are joining the classroom within the first 10 minutes, if you're not here exactly at the time that I'm starting, it is going to be marked as a tardy, as a late. And you don't want to have too many of those, because 3 lates, 3 tardies will be equivalent to 1 absent. So out of all the lectures that we're giving, you can only have a total of 6 absents for all the lectures that we're giving. You know, this is a fast-paced course, so missing just 1 lecture or even a small bit is going to get you behind. And that being said, 3 consecutive absent days in a row, you cannot have that, so that you'll be notified and possibly dropped, because that is too many absents. All right. So that being said, let's just, be here on time, exactly when the lecture starts, and, have a good time while we're learning. We don't want anyone to be behind. Okay, so let's go over some corny jokes here and get the day started. Why wouldn't the oyster give up her pearl? Anybody? She was shellfish. Okay.
The suspense was worth the wait right there.
All right. A sloth walks into a coffee shop, waves to the barista's attention, and says, "I'll have a cappuccino." The barista says, "Hey, why the long pause?" Oh my gosh. And this is why we ask for your videos, to be honest, so you can see the cringe. All right, last one. Why did the sailors have to stop playing cards? Because the captain was standing on the deck. Ha ha ha. All right, let's not do that again. All right, so how'd you guys do on your lectures? Your assignments. Did you guys feel comfortable? How are you guys hanging in there? Pretty good? Thumbs up. Nice, Hector. Okay, appreciate the feedback. We are going to go over how to do one of the practice assignments, but before we do that, let's do a little quiz here. All right, I'll go ahead and type it in the chat, and you guys go ahead and give me an answer. You don't get any real points for answering this, but you get, bragging rights, I guess. So what does H1 stand for? Header 1, header level 1. Cool. All right. And feel free to say it out loud if you don't want to type it in the chat. Okay. What does HTML stand for?
Hypertext Markup Language.
Nice, Joseph. All right. Okay. Let's give it a tougher one here. What does P stand for in the tag? Paragraph.
That was a tougher one, huh?
That was tough, right? Super tough. Or you guys are just star students. Okay. Well, with that short introduction, let us get on to the lesson here. I'm going to build one of these assignments here that is due for you. So you'll be able to use this to your benefit to turn in your own assignment. I prefer that you watch me instead of follow me directly, so you can absorb as much information. This lecture is recorded, so you can go back and watch the recording and pause it at any moment to just note down the code itself. But I wouldn't worry about typing exactly this fast pace as I will be typing. Not that I'll be typing that fast anyway, but you get the picture. Let's go ahead and get my screen shared. This is the one. Okay, great. So let's take a look at the calendar real quick, just so we know what we're doing here. We are going to be doing this assignment here. It is the registration form, okay? By the end of the day, you should be you should have this one finished. So this will be one off the checklist, but you'll want to have this push to GitHub, dictionary entry, portfolio content, all that finished by the end of the day, okay? It doesn't mean by 5 o'clock exactly, but before your day ends. And you'll have homework here to go over, and I'll go over that at the very end here. But without further ado, let's get started here. Okay, so here we have a registration form. Imagine you have a website and you want to have users on your website. You want them to be able to submit their information and select different form types. So I will be using the platform's documentation here in order to go ahead and reference all these entries. I know how to build it already, but I'm going to build it as if I'm learning this for the first time and I don't know how to reference this information. And then we'll have maybe another small quiz at the very end of the class today. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to use a special tool here. You don't have to use this tool that I'm going to use, but it is something that I'm going to use for lecturing purposes to demonstrate quick changes on a page. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is create a brand new file. I'm going to open a new file here, and I'm going to create something on my desktop. I'm going to create a new folder here, and I'm going to call it registration form. Okay. By the way, I am not building the folder file structure that we recommended because I will be doing that on a separate time for pushing to GitHub so you guys can see my code. Okay, so I'm going to call this folder registration form. Okay. And I'm going to open this folder. And because this is an HTML file, I'm going to go ahead and create this HTML file within the folder by clicking this button here and calling it index.html. Okay. Now, there is a shortcut that I didn't show you guys yet that will allow you to create a quick boilerplate for writing the HTML tags that you'll need to create a page. So what you'll do is enter the exclamation mark just like that by itself. And if you have named your file properly, if you have called it .html, Visual Studio Code will pick up on that and be able to give you this boilerplate here. So if I press exclamation mark, then enter. Let me expand this for you guys here. Or actually, I'll just make this smaller. Everyone can see that, right? Yeah, that's it. So it created that basic template without me having to memorize how to do this doc type .html. It's going to include the header tag, the body tag. It's going to give me that title already. So all I really need to do at this point is change the title. And so when I see here this example that says registration form, I see this at the title, I'm just going to assume that that is the name that I need to be giving it. Registration form. Yep. And that should give me the title. So now I want to check this. Okay. And I'm going to do that method I told you that it's not exactly recommended. You can use it if you want, Remember, in order to view this, I just need to copy the path here and press tab here and click enter. And it's going to show me a blank screen because I have nothing in my code yet. But for example, if I just write hello world here, just so I know I'm connected, and I refresh my page, I see hello world here. It's going to assume it's a p tag. So if it's not wrapped in anything, it's going to assume it's a p tag. This is not how you should write something, but I'm just testing to see it's connected. Okay. So I'm going to download an extension. Well, actually, I already have it downloaded, but I'm going to show you an extension that can help make coding a little bit easier here, at least for me, demonstration purposes. So if I go to extensions here and I type in live server, I should see this one here with this purple icon here. I have already installed it, so you won't see the install button available for me. And instead of right-clicking and copying the path, I'm going to open with live server, which is right up here. And this is strictly for viewing changes on an HTML page. So if I go ahead and close my browser here, because I don't need to see it there anymore, I'm just going to open it with live server. And it's going to open it on a new tab there. Okay, as if I already opened it in a new tab. The difference between opening it with a live server and a regular tab is that any changes made are going to be reflected right away, as long as you save those changes. These are the saved changes. And there it is. Right away, I see it immediately here. So I'm going to use this just for demonstration purposes. I wouldn't normally use a live server. I could if I wanted, but sometimes the live server needs to be refreshed, and there's really no downfall to it. It's just something that you can use or you don't have to. Okay, so I'm going to start building this page using the tools that I already built. Okay, so we didn't go over form tags, but we'll take a look at that right now. Okay, you guys should be going through this material on your own, but we're just going to reiterate through this in the lecture. So there's different types of input tags. There's a text input tag, all right, and that's defined here by this word type equals text. Okay, and this here name equals first name. This is a name given to this specific input so that we can identify it with a label. And I'll show you what I mean by that in a second here. But a basic input type text tag looks like this. I can type in any text I want. It'll just be something you can enter, like let's say a username or a email. Okay, there's other types of inputs. This one is strictly for numbers. All right, so I can increase or decrease the numbers here. Let's say you want to enter an age or something like that, or number of years of experience that you're asking a potential employee. Let's say you're an employer, you want to hire somebody. So you put the years of experience or something like that there, but this here says age, so you can make it to be for anything that is specific to numbers. This input type password blocks here the view of the entry so that it can, you can use these dots for when, let's say you're sharing a screen or you don't want someone to look over your shoulder and see your password. This type password will block it so that it is a type, so it looks like this here, okay? This type date will show up just like this, so you can select here these options here to select a specific date. When you select it, it'll put the numbers in like this automatically. There's also color. This is not used as much. It hardly will ever use this, but you can select a color here. Wait, why didn't it select it? There we go. We have a radio inputs. So radio inputs mean it's either A or B. So if I select bold, normal is not selected. If I select normal, bold is no longer selected. And that's the difference between a radio and a checkbox. A checkbox, you can select multiple checkboxes at once. And the way that's defined is by using this type checkbox. Okay. See how this says here, I'm going back to this radio input. See how the name says here, name equals font. And it says here, let's see, ID normal. And this label here is for normal. It's giving this, see how it without the labels, it would just be these circles. And you wouldn't have, the user clicking through the page wouldn't be able to know what they're selecting exactly without a label. So in order to give it a specified label, you have to put another label tag separate from the input tag, and that input has to be identified by an ID. Okay. So that is the purpose of using these label tags. They're very important. And there's also a text area. This is an area where you can enter a lot of text. Let's say there's a section here, and we're going to see it on the profile page, that you want to enter a bio or some comments, for example. You can also extend this input text area. And it's, written by typing text area with the opening and closing tag. And then lastly, there is the select form. Okay, so this will be able to select multiple options. All right, within the select form, you have to write options with opening and closing tags, and this will let you select multiple options. So having these form input types, we're going to build our own profile page. Okay, so let's go ahead and get that started. I'm going back to the assignment I'm working on, the registration form. And let's see here. I'm going to delete what I've already written and go ahead and get started. Okay, so I've already got my label here. It says registration form at the top. And I see here that, what is this? I see here that there is a H1 tag, right? It's going to be a header level 1 at the very top. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. H1. And here I'm going to say registration form. Okay. Before I continue, I just want to do a quick status check. Is everyone here with me? Is everyone following along just fine? I see a lot of nodding heads. Thank you very much. All right. I'll use that because we haven't gone that far. We don't have to do a 1 through 10 right now. So I appreciate your feedback. But just a reminder, interrupt me if I'm going too fast. Leave a comment or just unmute yourself, okay? Great. Okay, so header level 1, and we see it already affected on our page in our live server registration form. So I'm going to leave that there and go ahead and continue onward. All right, let's see the next section. And for the sake of demonstration purposes, I am going to put each thing here in its own div. All right, so this area here, first name, last name, email address, I'm just going to put them in their own div so that they're divided. So what I'm going to do here then is, if I type in div and I just press tab after typing in div, it'll create the opening and closing div tags for me. Okay. And I'm going to say within this div, I'm going to write a input type text. It assumes I'm using type text. And because when I look on the form here, I see this little star, I'm going to type in here required. Okay. So when I go through this form, you may not see the star right away, but it is a required tag. Okay. All right. So given the information we already just went over, how do I then put a label for this first name here. What are some suggestions that I can get from you guys?
Use the label. Would be my recommendation.
Okay. All right.
Input.
Label.
Well, I would say above though.
Okay. And so now when I type in label and I press tab, it's asking me a label for what, right? So what do I type here?
For text, or at least name the input something.
Okay. How do I give this input a name?
Name or ID, you can, yeah.
Okay, let's call this one first name. How about first name, since let's call it F name. Okay, and if I say label for F name, nothing affected here, right? So what else do I need to do in order to give this label some words?
Name it.
Name it. Okay, so if I type first name here, it's on the right hand side, right?
Yeah.
So this is the behavior for the label, unless I do something else. If I put the label in front of the input tag, it'll be in front. If I put the label behind the input tag, it'll be behind it. Okay. And because it's required, I'm going to put that required star. This is something that symbol above the 8, number 8 on your keyboard. Okay. And we got our first part of our form completed. Check. Okay. Last name is pretty much going to be the same deal, right? And the same thing with email. They're all going to be input types text. And they're all going to, oh, actually, I forgot the colon here. They're all going to be essentially the same type of input forms. But I'm going to just name them different things until I get to password, because password is going to be input type password, right? So let's go ahead and copy this 3 times. So 1, that's already there, 2, now 3. So now I should have 3 of the same thing. Okay. Now I'm going to change this to L name for last name. Change this a little bit. Oops, last name. And then this one should be email. And I'll change this here. Email. So now everything is going so far so good. Okay. I see there's a little bit of space between each one. So I'm going to teach you guys another tag here. And this one's called the BR tag. BR stands for break. So let's see how this looks. Now there's a little bit of space between the first name and last name. I'm going to put the BR tag here as well. And now we have some space there. Okay, great.
Hey, Josh,
Yes.
question for you. Can you go back to the code?
Yes, sir.
Did you need to change, so for line 23, should that have been changed from F name to something else? It didn't seem to have an effect.
Yes, good catch. Because it's in its own div, it just assumed that was the label for the same input there. But if this was an actual form, there would be a confusion. So thank you, Peter. Good catch. Very good. Appreciate that. If anyone else sees anything like that, then feel free to speak up. All right. So now we have 2 different types of inputs coming up. What type of what will we need to create these?
Password input.
Password input. Okay, great. So let's go ahead and look at the platform to see how that was done exactly. Okay, so if I go to forms and I see here type password, I'm going to copy this. I'm going to go ahead and create my own div for this section. So div tab, press enter and type it in there. I'm going to give it a label here as well. Label for password. And I need to give this ID password. And say password here as well. I also want to put a break here between email and password. So I'll put a break tag on line 26. Okay. And I want to show you guys something else here. You can remove the ID as well, and it will still work if you just give it by a name. And as you notice, even if I have the wrong ID or not the proper name, it'll assume it if it's in the same div. Okay, but in this case, it'll just identify it by the name. I do want an ID here, however. So I'm going to go back to putting an ID password. All right. And let's go on to the next part of the form. Let's see our example here, registration form, confirm password. Okay. So that's going to be just like the password, except for it's going to say confirm password. So I'm just going to copy this from line 31. And by the way, here's another way to highlight. If you put your pointer here on the line number that it's on, click and drag all the way to the line number you're trying to get to. You don't have to actually grab the text like this itself. Sometimes that can be a bit of a hassle. So you can just grab the numbers here and that'll highlight all the rows. So if I copy this, go down below, and I call it confirm password. And whenever we have two words for a name or ID or any type of naming convention where there's two words for one type of label, the second word will have the letter capitalized. This is called camel case. I think they called it this because it looks like if this was the head of the camel, this is where the hump would be, the P. It goes up. And so the next word would be something like next word. That's the convention called camel case. FYI. Okay, so now we have this confirm password. Let's have a check here. All right, it's looking good. I did forget to copy the break, so I'll just go ahead and input that in. There we go. Some spacing there. Now we have a couple. Now the rest of these tags are all unique to themselves. So let's go ahead and figure out how we're going to do this. Okay. What is the input label for birthday that we're going to use? Anybody?
Date.
You'd use the date.
Okay, great. Let's do that. I'm going to create another div here, and I'm going to say input. It's going to assume it's text until I change it. So I'm going to change it to date. Let's take a look at what we got. All right, it's looking good. We need a label for this though, right? So we're going to have to put birthday. So let's give this a name, birthday, label, tab, birthday. And it is capitalized, so I got to change that. Oh, no, this isn't capitalized. This here inside is capitalized, birthday. Okay. So here we are. Let's put another BR tag. And I'm going to put colons for the rest of these inputs here. So let's go ahead and put colons. And I forgot to put some stars for password and confirm password. So let's go back. Let's check our work as we work. Colon, 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 star. Great. Is birthday required? It's not. Okay, great. All right. So now what is this type of form input here? Below birthday.
Radio.
Radio. Cool. Let's do radio. How do we do that? If you forget how to do it, you can always go back to the platform. So I'm going to copy the radio input here. We have an example, bold and normal. Does it look exactly like what our example is? I don't know yet. Let's just copy it. Put a BR tag, div. All right. So when I copy it straight to my page, sometimes it doesn't look properly formatted. So what I could do is highlight all these and press tab all at once. Or there's another option, which is if I right click on the page itself and I click format document. The other option is to do Shift Option F if you're on the Mac. And I believe on the PC, it is Shift Control F.
Should it be alternate, maybe alternate, because option is usually alternate. ALT.
Yeah.
That's shift alt F.
Okay. Shift Alt F. Alt, yes. Okay. So now my code is nice and clean. It'll format the entire document, by the way, not just this area. So if the rest of the code here was a little messy, it'll get cleaned up. All right, so now I have a bold and normal radio input. I'm going to take away this strong tag so that it's not actually boldened. I need to change the names as well based on the example here. So we have male, female, non-binary, and I prefer not to answer. Okay, so let's copy these a couple more times. Since I already have two, I'm going to put these two right underneath. And I'm just going to change the values and names of these as I go along. Let's move this over. Okay, so change the value and ID and for and bold. And by the way, when you highlight something on Visual Studio Code, let's say I highlight this word bold, Visual Studio Code will recognize any similar words on the page itself. So value ID on line 47, on line 48, and 48 here for the for, and here within the label itself. Also, because I copied it twice, it's going to be here on line 51, and the value ID and the label here on 52, and for and within the label. So a quick shortcut that I can give myself here, and this is one of those shortcuts you probably want to get familiar with, is holding the Control D if you're on Windows, or Command D if you're on Mac. So if I highlight one and it sees similar words and I want to change all those words, I just hold Command D and it'll highlight the next one, and it'll keep highlighting as long as I press the D on my keyboard. Okay, so now that I have all of them highlighted, I want to delete them all at once. So as long as the cursor is on the right side there on all of them, I press the delete button, and now all the values there are gone. All right, so for the first value here, I want to put male. So here where I see it empty, I'm going to say male, male, male. And within the label tag, I type in a capitalized male. Okay. And since it deleted on the bottom, I'll get to that later. The next value I see here is normal. So if I highlight normal here, I'm going to delete all the normals by doing this Command D shortcut. And now that's erased. Now I have other radio inputs, as you can see, they just need to be filled out. So this one's going to be female, female, male, female. Cool. All right, so 2 out of 4. Now we got 9 non-binary, and I prefer not to answer. So here we go. We have non-binary. And just for the sake of eliminating the possibility of a typo, I'm going to copy. I used to have a senior engineer at one of the jobs I had, and she would always get mad at me if I didn't copy because I would possibly make an error. And I would, say, no, I'm not going to make an error. But you never know. She was right. So non-binary. And most of the errors that you'll come across sometimes are simple errors that you can do as a typo. Non-binary. Lastly, I prefer not to answer. So I will say no answer. No answer. And lastly, within this label, I'm going to type in, I prefer not to answer. Cool. Let's see what we got. All right. Great. Now, since all of these radio inputs have their own label, I'm just going to put a basic P tag at the very top here. And that's going to suffice for making this radio input. Okay. So I'm going to put a P tag at the above all of this here. This P tag is going to say gender identity. Cool. All right. Now just a few more and we'll be done with this assignment. So what do I want to do for this area here, this section that says a short description about myself?
Use the text input.
Text input. Thank you, Dia. Let's do that now. I'm going to go to forms. And it's actually called Textarea, not text input. And I'm going to put it in its own div here at the very bottom. Oops, let me show that there. Forgot to put it within its own div. Sorry about that. Let me just copy that over. So I'm going to cut and paste it up here. And that's where it goes. Okay. As you can see here, you can define the width of this text area. Let's say I want to make it 4 rows. It'll increase the size of the height. Columns will increase the size of the width. Let's see how big our assignment tells us to make it. It should be from about where mail is to to beginning of I prefer not to answer. So I'm going to give it a shortened width. About there. Now all this needs is a label. So let's put a label at the very beginning. For comment. And actually, I'm going to change the description from comment to description. And description. Now, this is the issue that you will have here with this. If you use a label for this text area, it will assume it will just put it at the bottom left. It won't actually put it at the very top like we see in the example. So in order to achieve this, we're going to have to abandon this label unless we put some styling on it. Right now, we haven't learned enough styling to do that. So I'm just going to use a p tag and say a short description about myself. And that way we'll achieve this similarity. Okay, now we have just 3 more input types. Let's figure out what this one is. So any suggestions?
The
select
checkbox.
input.
Oh,
Oh.
my bad. I skipped one. My bad.
Who said the answer? Everyone spoke at once.
The select input.
Yes. Thank you, Danielle. Select input. So let's find that here on our options. Here it is. So I'm just going to copy this straight from the platform. And I'll put it in its own div. So BR tag, div, and then I'll paste it right in there. And let's see how it looks on the platform. So I'm going to go back to here, registration form, and I'm going to give it a label. ID. It's going to be called language. So this should be called language. And the label should say language. And it's going to say language here as well. Okay. Now we have a couple options. I'm going to say the first option is JavaScript. We'll be learning that shortly. In fact, we'll be doing that tomorrow morning. The next one, I'm going to say Python. Next is Java. And lastly, I'm going to say C#. Cool. So let's go ahead and take a look at this. If I click here on my dropdown, now I see all my options. Actually, it says favorite language, so I'm just going to change that here. Favorite language should be there now. Great. Lastly, 2 more. All right, guys, let's get some feedback here. What's my next option?
Checkbox.
Nice. Okay.
If we want to make the select thing like the first option to be blank, we would just add another option that's blank, right?
Thing is, with coding, you can always test this yourself. It is.
Okay, yeah, that looks better.
Yep.
Awesome.
But I do want to change it back to JavaScript. Okay. So now we have a BR. And we'll have a checkbox. How do we do checkbox? Let's go to our platform here. Checkbox was at the bottom. So here it is. Copy that over. Now the label, we want it to be in front, because if we leave it behind, actually, is that how the example gives? Let's see here. Yeah, it is behind. So, okay, all we really need to do is change that label. What does it say? Yes, I would like to receive periodic email update. Okay. Yes, I would like to receive periodic email updates. And I'm going to call this one updates. So I changed all three at once there. I'm going to format my document because it's looking a little messy now. And that's all I needed to change. But in case I missed anything, lastly, what's this input at the very bottom?
A button.
Submit.
Yes. Let's look at the platform to get exactly what it is. Pretty soon you won't be able to won't need to reference the platform. You'll just have these memorized. All right. So there's a couple options that we can have here. We can have a button or input type submit. Right now we're just going to use this here, input type submit. But a button would work just fine as well. Okay, so I'm putting another BR tag. Oops. BR div input type submit value text button text, but we want it to say registration form, create account. Okay, so let's take a look at how we got that now. And it has a little bit of a text shadow here, but that's something you'll do with CSS. That's what's going to be able to let you create some styling. Okay, there's also this option here. It's not on the platform yet, but if you type in button and type in within this button area, create account, it's pretty much the same thing, right? Just another form of making the input, but this one's specific to being called button. Okay, so you can use either or. I want to delete this whole line, so I just press 81 and then press delete. And lastly, I have this here. This star indicates a required field. So this would be a P tag, right? Everyone nods their heads. Great. Okay. This one says indicates a required field. And that's it. We're done with this assignment. We have completed it. And we do have a little bit of indentation here to the right. Okay. That's okay if we avoid this for now. It doesn't have to be pixel perfect. We're just getting the basic gist of the assignment. If I wanted to add some spacing here on the left, I would do that through a style tag or affect it using CSS. But again, we're not going to worry about that now. We're just going to try to get the basic gist of this page and be satisfied with that. So with that, we have finished this portion of the lecture. Can I get a status check on how we're feeling about creating, if we were to assign you this, how we would be able to create this? Fantastic. Okay. All right. So now that we have a little bit of time left, I'm going to do a quick quiz with you guys, and then we're going to do a demonstration of how to submit our projects using GitHub. Okay. All right. So let me think of some questions here.
I ask a question quickly?
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Can you confirm that the confirm password box shows up as stars? Because the input that you put for the confirm password on line 35 was confirm password, not just password.
Line 35, confirm password.
Or sorry, line 37 now. The input type is confirm password. Is that right? Is that still going to show up as stars?
You know what? That should just be password. Thank you. Good catch. And this name should actually be confirm password, just like this. Okay, keep everything leveled out. It's good
And
to
I
go
think
back.
sorry.
ahead.
And I think one of them have like mentioned the option radio. The name is still font, so you probably want to change all the name from fonts to gender, I believe. Yeah.
Right. Yes. So the name itself, the label can refer to the input by the name or the ID. And so in this case, I don't want to
I
just
think for labels to do their actual intended purpose where they will focus the input, it has to be the ID. So if like the text will show up and it'll look fine, but if you click on the text and you don't have the ID and the for matching, it will not focus the input, even if you have a name.
Okay, so that's something we'll need to I'll confirm that, but let's go with Christian's word on that. Thank you, Christian. So any other questions? Anything else? Okay. So let's go over a quick quiz here. If I wanted to use this gender identity label, what is the input type for this here? Type it in the chat. Nice. Radio. Okay. And what is the input for this short description here? Yes, Textarea. And for this drop down. Oh, I see more than one here. Select option. Okay. Yes. It is both. Select and then option goes within the select. The option gives us multiple options to select here, and select is the broader one here. Should be the parent. By the way, for every tag that we use here, if a tag is within another tag, it is called that child's tag. So this div here would be the parent for this input and this label. Okay. So that is what's going on here. That is the parent tag. These are the children. That will be important for us to know later on in CSS, but it's good to start getting familiar with that now. Okay. And with that, we will go ahead and be switching topics. I'll be switching screens here. We're going to do a quick demonstration on how to submit to GitHub using VS Code. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that now. Heidi, would you share your screen?
Okay, there you go. So I created a folder called registration form, and also I got the VS Code. Just let me open this one first. Just going to drag it over here. Yep. And let me just create something random first. Yeah, so that at least we have something to push or something like that. I think HTML5 is this good? Yeah. Yep. What do you want me to do next?
You can just type in hello world in the body. And then from this point, we are going to switch over to the Git button. Now that this is saved, this area here on the left below the search bar. It says source control. We're going to click that. And we're going to click initialize repository. So anytime you start a new repository, the repository's location in your Git that you'll push to GitHub, GitHub's the website, you'll want to initialize a repository so that it'll be recognized, okay? The next step is to enter a message there at the very top, and this will be a commit message. So anytime you make a change to your file and you want to make a note on what that change entails, so you can have a reminder for yourself. So if you're working on a team with somebody and they're working on the same repository, you want to put a message there so your teammate knows exactly what you did and why. You'll put a message there. Okay, it can be detailed. You can have it just a short. For the first one, we're just going to have it say initial commit. Okay, so once we put the label there, we're going to press commit. Okay, now this repository is initialized. It has a message, and now we can publish this branch. Okay, once we publish this branch, we're going to give this one a name. It's going to assume the name already because of the name of the folder. And you can, or you can give it whatever name you want, and it will create a repository based on what you type here. When you publish here by clicking that first tab option, publish to private repository, private will be for only you and only you can see. We want to make it public for our assignment submissions, so click public, please, Heidi. And now it is creating this repository. So now, if you click open on GitHub, this tab will open up. It'll open up the website that you would have to have created in a GitHub account, link it to your Visual Studio Code. And once you've done that, it will have it available here. So if you click this index.html, you'll see the file that you've created. Okay, so now it's all available for us to see here. And you'll be able to submit your assignments by taking a link of that page on the right-hand side, or either at the top there, or if you go to code at that green button on the right, you can also get the link there by copying that button, link to the HTTPS. Take that link and insert it into the document where it's asking for that. So you can type it in the URL, paste it in there, save. We'll be able to go to that link and see your progress. Okay, any questions about how to use GitHub so far?
And there's another quick note that I want you to know. So sometimes, let's say you finish the assignment, you push it to the GitHub, but you have some changes. So let's say you want to change something. I don't want hello world. I want a hello world in like exclamation mark. So let's say I save this file one more time. So you will see that the source control will have a number. So this one means we have one change that they found. Okay, so let's say I created another folder over here. Let's say I created another folder called, I don't know, like another HTML. Super random. Another file. So do you see that when I hit save over here, you see a 2 over here. So what happened is that right now, when we initialize the repository, there is a file called .git that is created. You see over here, it's in your local storage. So whenever you have some changes inside your folder, like for that repository, you will see the changes over here. Like right now, it's number 2, because we have 2 changes in the index and also in this another .html. And let's say you got the changes and you want the changes to be pushed inside the GitHub as well, because you want it to be publicly available. So you can do the exact same thing, but because we initialized the repository already, we can basically just type in another message. So edit more files, and hit commit one more time. And after that, just hit another time, same changes. I think it's not this one. It's probably, is it push? I think so. I can be wrong. Yeah, I don't usually use this one. Yeah, so after I click the push, so this one actually has some problem. The same changes doesn't really work. So you have to click on this push to push your updates on the GitHub. But right now, after you have done this, if you go back to the GitHub page that we have, where is my GitHub page? See, how did I call it? Do you remember?
You should, oh, you don't have it pasted on your clip.
Whatever you name, yeah, this one. So do you see that like on my page over here, I can see the file now. This is the updates that I just pushed. And I can see that the updates is called like add more files, because that's the latest update. So the hello world got the exclamation mark. But if you did not push the changes, you didn't really like keep on pushing it. So your GitHub will still stay what it was.
Right. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Heidi. Okay, maybe demonstrate one more thing here. If you go back on your browser, if you click the back button so that on your history, you can click that green button there that says code, and you'll be able to download whatever available GitHub repository. So as I push all the assignments that we've worked on here, you'll be able to go to my GitHub and you'll be able to see the assignment by clicking download zip. Or if you have the GitHub desktop app, that's another feature of GitHub. You'll have a separate app that you can download that will work in conjunction with Git. But for now, let's just click download zip. You'll be able to download a zip file of whatever we pushed and then unpackage it, and you'll have the folder that you have created in another form. So you'll have that zip available. So if you see your downloads and open that zip, it'll be the same exact file there. Oh, it was available there for just a minute. Okay, great. So that's what we have. Now it's called it master because this is the master branch. There's different branches and a folder system here for making submissions to Git, because let's say, for example, multiple people will be working on a single project and will have multiple branches. It'll add branches for any change. And so the owner of the project or the repository can see the different changes and merge those branches into the master branch. So that's why it's called master there. Okay. Let's do a status check about how we're feeling about Git now.
And I will mention, by the way, the this button down here, this little circle, this does the sync changes, so it'll push and pull at the same time, which is usually a bit more convenient than going to the menu.
Oh, I never used this one.
Yeah. When you're
Wait a
working,
minute. That means if I try to make it into another file with some, not this one, it's untracked. So with some exclamation mark, you mean I can just click on this guy?
Well, you'll still have to make
still have to commit, right?
Yeah, you still have to commit it and give your commit message, but you don't have to go to the three dots and then do push. You'll just, once you click commit, then you hit that and you see how it's got one up arrow. It shows you
Just click this guy?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know why my sync changes always give me errors. So at
that's weird.
some point, it doesn't work for me for sync changes. And at the end, I have to do the push for me. But I think for you, it should work for the sync changes. I think like for me, it just like didn't work. Yeah.
It's probably because it does a push and a pull. I wonder for some reason, maybe your pull is not working. Because all sync changes does is both push and pull at the same time.
Yeah,
So
it's
it's like-
possible. Yeah, but because like most of the time, if you see like why this part is not working, is because like most of the time I actually use GitHub desktop other than like VS Code one. So there are a lot of different ways to do your GitHub. And usually I like to use my GitHub desktop because I can go to different repository. I can change my ID easily, something like that. But yeah. But
Okay.
when you're working in VS Code, that makes sense. And I think your sync changes should work.
So when Christian said it will sync changes, it'll pull and push at the same time. What he's saying there is, let's say you're working on the same repository with another, with someone else, you have a partner. You'll want to pull their changes that they have added to the repository so that you download whatever they've added and then push in addition to what they've contributed, so that there's no overlap there. So in order to avoid overlap, that's what that is for. Okay. So I see a bunch of 10s, and I think we should go ahead and call this meeting, go ahead and end this lecture. Are there any specific questions we'd like to address at this point? How we can use Git, how we can push, pull, etc.
And don't forget to follow the platform as well, because I think when you try to do the GitHub, when you do it for your first time, you will have to do some configuration before you get started.
Yes.
And you have to add some token inside your GitHub as well. So inside the GitHub, I believe I forgot already. Yeah. Is it in settings? I forgot, like somewhere like account, right?
I don't think you actually need to set the token.
You need to set the tokens for that, but because if you are using if you don't need it, that's fine. Yeah.
Yeah. What you'll need to do first is go to github.com, create an account, and then if you can go back to the platform there, you will need to enter in the terminal section here, these command lines in order to get started. In order to open the terminal and get that started, Heidi, could you open your terminal in VS Code?
Sure. Oh, VS Code, sure.
Or whatever.
Yeah, either way works.
So if you go to terminal on VS Code there, it'll open this command line where you can put those lines in there. So getting started is a bit of a hassle. You will have to go through all these steps, create the account. You're going to have to do it eventually, so might as well do it, get used to it now. You have to create the account, open the terminal, put in your credential information, and then you'll be able to sync your changes using that side panel button. Once you do that, then all you have to do is link your project by the URL. And that's why we have two options there, because one can be a bit of a learning curve. If you want to just focus on getting your core assignments finished without having to do a GitHub push each time, that's why we have the zip, drop your zips option. But this is a core assignment, so you will have to get over this hump. I might as well do it sooner than later. Okay. And we have some info in the chat from Christian about the difference between.
And don't forget, you are not John Doe. Make sure that you change your name and also order email, all these things, because that happens before. Some students asking me why is it not working, because they are not John Doe. So
but for the token, I just don't worry about the Git token for now. It's an alternative to the username and email, where essentially you won't have to provide your password when running Git commands, because if you just set it up this way, if you try to do certain things with Git, you have to actually type in your password into the terminal. The token makes it so you don't need to provide your password, but it also is a temporary thing. I forget how long it lasts. I think it might be a year or something like that.
We can last for forever. Yeah.
Okay.
I thought last I checked, I thought it had to be I thought it had to be updated like yearly or something like that.
No, I think you don't need to. Let me see whether I can find where it is for the token. So the token is basically like for GitHub, when they, at some point, they feel like things are not very secure. So they want to make sure that everyone has a token when they are over here. So it's like when I go back here, if you want to use the Git bash, so you can go to developer setting and personal access token.
Okay.
I got the classic one. So when I generate a new token, it can be like last for a long time, as I remember. They will send a lot of information for you. But I think you can set how long you want a token to last for. For mine, it actually lasts for like years, so it won't be expired anytime soon.
And there is a limit for tokens as well. There's only 100, you can only have it for 100 applications is the
Right.
limit for.
I don't
Yeah,
think
so
it was
there's a
really
few
100
limitations on it.
application, right? That's scary.
Well, let's end the lecture here. I don't want to
Yeah.
overwhelm them with information. There is a bit of a like I said, a learning curve to using Git. And for Windows users, you may have to download something called Git Bash. It's a command line terminal specific for Git to use that. We'll go over it. We'll do more practice with Git as we go along. You know, get used to it, get familiar now. We'll reiterate how to push in the future as we go through our assignments. So don't worry if you don't grasp this concept right away. What we want you to focus on is getting these core assignments like the registration form. So focus on understanding how to make these HTML pages, because tomorrow we'll be working on CSS. We'll already be styling our pages, okay? So thank you guys for being great listeners. We really appreciate you. And if there's no further questions, we'll go ahead and end the lecture now.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, man.
Actually, I have a question real quick.
Yes, Matthew.
I have an option of both Windows and Mac. What would you prefer?